In 1989, Dodge was not happy with how its Dakota pickup truck was selling. The Dakota was a mid-sized pickup that Dodge had started building a few years earlier in 1987 to compete with those entry-level trucks like the Ford Ranger and Chevy S10. The Dakota was a little heftier than those more compact options, but its sales were lagging way behind. In an effort to combat those lagging sales, Dodge's CFO floated a crazy idea that somehow managed to make it to production. His idea to improve Dodge Dakota pickup truck sales, mind you, was to make a convertible. Yes, I said convertible. Jerry York, the CFO of Chrysler at the time, proposed something that hadn't been seen on a dealership floor in more than half a century: a pickup truck with a soft top. Now, there had been lots of other sport utility vehicles with soft or removable roofs, even some with removable back seats to get it close to having a cargo bed. And there was a small cottage industry of companies that would remove a hardtop roof from a pickup truck. But the last time a cargo bed and folding top had been offered straight from the dealership had been in 1934 with the Ford Roadster pickup. York teamed up with the American Sunroof Company, also known as ASC, to produce a few prototypes. And to quite a few people's surprise, these convertible truck prototypes got high praise at the auto shows they were shown at. So, Dodge put together a contract with ASC to make a 3-year run of convertible trucks. And Dodge's product planning chief, Bruce Benedict, and others began to spread the word. The American Sunroof Company agreed to take Dakotas from Dodge, remove the roofs, install a vinyl top and a padded roll bar behind the seats, and then attach new points for the seatbelt shoulder straps to that new top roll bar. For the 1989 model year, Dodge offered the Dakota convertible on just one of its main trim levels, the Sport. The Dodge Dakota Sport Convertible was only available with a 3.9-liter V6 that made 125 horsepower at 4,000 RPM and around 195 foot-pounds of torque at 2,000 RPM. Early brochures suggested that the Sport Convertible would come standard with a 5-speed manual transmission, but by the time the cars were actually made, it was only offered with a 4-speed automatic with a push-button overdrive control. Dodge Dakotas were available with 2 different wheelbases and 2 different bed sizes, but the convertible was only sold with the shorter of 2, 112 inches with a 4-foot by 6-foot bed. On the plus side though, you could get your convertible with 4-wheel drive. Cast aluminum wheels were standard, and trucks with the 2-wheel drive got P125 tires by default. 4-wheel drive Dakotas got P235 tires. An anti-lock braking system was standard on the power discs up front, and the rear were drums. Another point that actually somehow worked in the Dodge Dakota convertible's favor was that it had a full-frame design, and the small passenger cabin that it already had meant that the roof wasn't necessarily a huge contributor to body rigidity. Aftermarket convertibles in those days, especially on unibody cars, often seriously lowered stability during cornering. Body flex under strain could reduce traction and even in serious cases damage the car. But the Dakota convertible was almost as solid as the hardtop version. It wasn't quite there, but that full-frame design did help a ton. The cover was manually foldable and removable vinyl, with a cover to use on the cover to keep it from catching the wind when it was folded up. Unlike most of these convertible tops, this one was pretty lightweight, it was easy to fold, and it took less time to actually take down than most T-tops did. On the minus side though, for a truck that was never designed to have a convertible roof, this roof didn't have a great reputation for the best fit. It actually tended to leak quite a bit and created a ton of wind noise at speed. Car and Driver snarkily even suggested that you might want to figure out a system of hand signals to communicate with your passenger with on the highway. Cosmetically, the Dakota Sport Convertible was offered in 3 different paint colors: black, bright white, and graphic red. The grille, bumpers, and several other parts of the trim were all black like the roof, with some unique gradient stripes on the lower third of the sides, as well as Dakota badging both inside and out. The Dakota was a decent looking truck for the time, and the retractable top gave it a very unique profile. The The bench seat was made from a very plush velour embossed with the Dakota logo, and there was a central armrest that could be pushed up or down in that middle seat area. The dashboard was utilitarian as you would have expected from any other truck in this class. Power steering, power windows, and power locks were standard. When Dodge released this convertible truck, they were ready for the orders to start flying in, and for the Dakota to take its place over the competition because of this quirky option that people were so enthusiastic about at the auto shows. Unfortunately, that didn't really happen. In the first year, 1989, only 2,842 of the sport convertible Dakotas sold. That's a tiny amount compared to the almost 90,000 Dakotas sold that year, and a drop in the bucket compared to the 184,000 Ford Rangers sold that year. Maybe it was too expensive. That's what they might have wondered, because the next year they offered a convertible version of the SE package too. The SE package was a few $1,000s cheaper and offered a 2.5-liter inline-4 with 100 horsepower, chrome trim instead of black, and a new blue paint job. But that offering flopped too. In 1990, only 909 Dakota convertibles were sold, including the new SE models. Dodge decided to just give up on this failed experiment, but their 3-year contract with ASC meant they had to make a few more in 1991. 1991 offered some minor revisions of the headlights, but not much else. And after building out just 8 convertibles, Dodge gave up on the convertible pickup truck altogether. Nobody else would even try to pick up the idea of a convertible truck until Chevy decided to a decade later with the SSR. And the SSR was also almost as short-lived as the Dakota convertible. Now, Jerry York had been on the short list of candidates for Chrysler CEO in 1992 after Lee Iacocca retired, but he was passed over. Now, did the flop of his brainchild Dakota convertible have anything to do with it? Well, we may never know for sure, but it definitely couldn't help. The Dakota Sport convertible was a nothing burger of a vehicle. Now, it was unique, but it was unique for all the wrong reasons. Nobody really wanted them, its engine was nothing special, and especially at 4,000 pounds, it was pretty gutless. If it hadn't been for Dodge's contractual obligation to the American Sunroof Company, these would have been probably 2 model year trucks instead of 3. They are rare, but it's because of their mediocre performance and just low overall demand, and they're not expensive because of it. These days you could find a very nice one for 10 grand, and it's true that it's still a very rare Mopar, but the sad truth is it's very different from the dealer brochure that claimed in period it will practically sell itself, because practically nobody wanted them new and even fewer people want them today. In contrast though, in 1989, a different group within Dodge worked with Carroll Shelby to produce a limited run of Shelby Dodge Dakotas with a more powerful V8 engine in them. The demand for that truck would prove to be much stronger, and Dodge began offering V8s in the Dakota from 1991 onward. And I'll be doing a full other video breakdown on that, so you're going to have to stay tuned for when that drops. But that ends the story of the Dodge Dakota Sport Convertible. Let me know if you'd ever see one of these or ridden in one. And if you have ridden in one or even owned one, let me know how bad that roof actually leaked and about that wind noise. Was it as bad as Car and Driver described it? But again, thank you all for watching the video so much. It means a ton to me. If you enjoyed it, please go ahead and leave a like and subscribe to the channel because we are dropping new videos like this every single week. But otherwise, I will see you all in the next one, enthusiasts.